Now that is how you start off a morning correctly. You cannot go wrong with some cold starts with the Supra and the Nissan GT-R. In today's video, we're gonna go over 5 modifications that every single turbocharged car absolutely needs. So for my examples, I have my R35 Nissan GT-R and my Mark V Toyota Supra. I'm gonna go over basically 5 mods that really optimize what you can get out of a turbocharged car. So then to jump right into it, the first thing on the list as far as what mods you should do to your turbocharged car, the first thing honestly should be a tuner of some sort. So this is my COD access port. This one is set up for the Nissan GT-R. Now even with a stock car with no modifications, the rest of the list of course is actual physical modifications, but without any mods, just tuning the vehicle's engine, the ECU, the computer of the car, you can actually get like 50 horsepower extra on your stock car. Every car is a mass-produced car, so they're really optimized for, you know, by the thousands. So when you tune it, you kind of fine-tune literally what the computer's doing, how much air and how much fuel is going into the engine, how much boost there is. Tuning is not that expensive, maybe $500 to $1,000 depending on what you're doing. Just a basic ECU tuner for the GT-R is around 600 bucks, and I've seen tuners similar to that for the Supra for around that same price range. And then you can do custom dyno tuning to really fine-tune it. But that is definitely number 1 on the list, and that opens it up for all the performance parts we're going to talk about in the rest of this video, because without this you really don't get the benefit of all these extra parts. So number 2 on the list has to do with your exhaust system, specifically the downpipe. Now the GT-R is a V6, so you have an exhaust on each side of the engine. The Supra is an inline 6, so we just have one of them. But the downpipe, this is one of the 2 stock downpipes for the GT-R, and this houses a catalytic converter. So this engine will have one catalytic converter just like that bolted to each turbo. The Supra, on the other hand, will have one catalytic converter bolted to the turbo. You can see this one right here. So obviously that downpipe, that stock cat, is there for emissions reasons, but as far as performance goes, that robs a ton of horsepower and a ton of good sounds from these vehicles. They're pretty quiet stock, of course, with the stock exhaust, but when you take this out and put a catless downpipe in, or commonly called a test pipe, that opens up the exhaust to have 0 restrictions, and literally you can get a ton of power. And then going back to number 1 with the tuning, when you tune it with a downpipe, you're talking like 100 horsepower gain. That is a huge difference. The Supra alone, a downpipe and a tune, adds about 100 horsepower. And then continuing with just the downpipe, you're most likely going to have a secondary cat. On the GT-R, this is the mid-pipe. It houses 2 more catalytic converters. They're only about this big. They just catch a little bit more of the exhaust coming out of the engine, and still they restrict it a little bit with performance and sound. If you don't want to deal with any tuning, just doing a secondary cat delete will open up the performance a little bit and give you better sound, and you don't have to worry about tuning. But if you are going to go the tuning route, which is definitely recommended for a turbo car, downpipes, catless, straight pipe it, tune it for that, and you'll get some insane power and an amazing sound. Number 3 on the list happens to be the first modification I do to every single one of my cars. Don't know how it works out this way, but a new air intake. So if we look over at my Toyota Supra, I have an upgraded air intake. Now this pipe is actually a lot bigger in diameter than the stock one. This is like a 4-inch tube. The stock one's like 3 or 3.5. So with this larger tube right here, which is connected to the turbo inlet, the turbo has an easier time pulling air into the engine, which means the turbo can spool up a little bit quicker. And then another really cool benefit of an intake on a turbo car, you're going to hear the turbo noises. Stock, you don't hear anything, but with an intake like that, you hear the whoosh noise, the blow-off noise, all that kind of awesome turbo sounds, which I absolutely love. I cannot get enough of. You hear the turbo noises. And then if we look over on my my GTR, these are oversized air intakes as well. These are 3-inch diameter, stock is 2.75. And with this one, since we have mass airflow sensors directly in the pipes, pairing that with the tune, I was actually able to get a ton of extra power out of this with bigger intakes and the tune. It just makes the turbo suck in more air for more power. Now there's gonna be 2 different intakes you can get. There's gonna be a hot air intake or a cold air intake. You wanna stick with a cold air intake. So on the GTR, if you notice, you don't see the air filters. They are actually sitting right here in the bumper. There is no heat from the engine getting to those air filters. So all of the air is actually getting sucked in right through this area in the grill. So the GTR is sucking in very nice ambient air. If you go look at the Toyota Supra, we have a heat shield around the entire air filter. Air filter is sitting right there, and it is connected to a duct that comes out right into the bumper. So both cars are breathing air from the front bumpers, which makes them nice cold air intakes. You will see some air intake kits that have the air filters sitting right in the engine bay with nothing around them. As much as you're going to get more sound out of those, they're honestly sucking in really hot air from the engine, robbing you of some horsepower. So I would not recommend one. They might be cheaper, might be easier to install, but you're hurting performance and you're just getting extra sound. These true cold air intakes sound amazing and give you really good reliable power. So on top of the air intake, because we're talking about airflow to the engine, next up is your intercooler. Now on the GTR, I have an upgraded intercooler. You can see it back here. It is a lot larger than the stock one, so this does a really good job cooling down that hot turbo air. The Supra is a little bit different. The intercooler is built into the intake manifold. Basically, it has the coolant lines going through it to cool down that charged air. So if you can upgrade that somehow to cool down your intake temps, that'll make it a little bit more efficient when it is hot out. And when I compared the stock intercooler to the upgraded one on the GTR, it lowered the intake temps by like 10-15 degrees. That was a really big difference. Number 4 on the list is the recirculation valve. This is this piece right here. This is the stock one that comes on the GTR. There are going to be 2 since it is a twin turbo. The Supra has one similar to this built into the turbo inlet. It is way down here on the turbo. You can kind of see it sitting right there. This basically controls the boost that is let into the engine. When you let off the throttle plate in the throttle body closes. This charge pipe right here is going to have high pressure air from the turbo in it, and this recirculation valve will open, let all that pressurized air out back into the intake. That way there's no extra boost sitting in those charge pipes, which could easily damage something. On the GTR, I have upgraded ones, as you can see, and a reason why you're going to want to upgrade these, this is a plastic valve in here, and stock recirc valves like this generally leak maybe like a pound of boost. So if you're flooring it, that valve will somewhat slightly open, letting some of the boost out when it shouldn't be. These upgraded ones that I have on the GTR have an aluminum valve in them. Very, very high quality. These are for racing, and they completely seal off all the pressure. They have larger pistons in them versus this little tiny plastic one. And they do make a better sound. When I did it on the GTR, you just heard more of a whistly sound when the blow-off noise came on. And these you can upgrade. You can have stiffer springs, so if you are upgrading the boost, this car is running 20 psi, stock is like 13, so I have more boost going through these pipes than stock. And the stock one, there's no real way to upgrade this or anything, but these ones are designed to hold a lot more boost. So number 5 on the list, the last thing you should do to your turbocharged car has to do with the fuel system. Upgrading your fuel injectors and your fuel pump is a way to get more fuel into the engine. We've already talked about freeing the exhaust gas, getting more air into the engine, and then tuning it to optimize all that. With all that extra airflow, you need fuel as well. That is how a combustion engine works. Air-fuel mixes, explodes, and then you have a ton of power. So if you upgrade the fuel injectors, which on this car, they're located right underneath this intake manifold. Might be kind of hard to see them in there, but the stock ones I think are around like 600 or 700 cc's. These are 1050 cc. But when you upgrade the fuel injectors, you're able to put more fuel into each cylinder, obviously giving you more power. And then to continue adding fuel, an upgraded fuel pump will actually send the fuel from the tank to the injectors a little bit more efficiently and more reliably than the stock pump is going to do. This car is about maxed out with the stock fuel pump. If I did E85 or any more aggressive tuning, I would need a bigger fuel pump. So I think that is about going to wrap it up for everything I had to go over. The GTR has all those mods done to it. This is a full bolt-on stage 3 setup. Generally a stage 3 system is this, full bolt-ons, straight pipe, catless, bigger intakes, bigger injectors. The Supra is still pretty much stock. I haven't done any tuning or anything to this, just the basic bolt-ons, the AW exhaust, the intake, and a charge pipe. But all that stuff I've done to the GTR, I'm going to be doing to this car as well, and it will make it so much better. And even just looking at the GTR from stock to where it is now, it is a massive, massive difference. This is like 200 more horsepower than stock, and this car absolutely rips. It is so much more fun to drive. It sounds insane. It's so freaking fast. But anyway, guys, if you have a turbocharged car, do those 5 things and you will love your car even more. It'll be faster, better sounding, and just a lot more fun. So hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, smash the subscribe button. See you guys next video.
control. Yeah, so baby, don't lose control. I'm focused on you, baby. Lately, you've been in my aim. I've been reaching out for you, and still they're so far away. Looking through the smoke in the mirror. Crazy how I see you so clear. Crazy how I see you so clear. And how you make me smile. And how you make me smile.